What can I say about him? He's been a friend of fandom for many, many years. He is an actor, author, astronaut, director, and so many things to so many people. Please welcome Mr. William Shatner.
Is that a boxing ring over there?
Yeah!
No kidding.
Fight!
Yeah, I would.
Wrestling.
I'd fight you anytime. Come on down here. My God, there's so few people.
That's okay, we love
It's
you.
like facing failure. Oh my God. There's nobody here. That may be because you don't know that I was in a lot of monster movies at one time. Did you know that? Does the word tarantula mean anything to you? Well, I did a movie several years ago, and it had to do with spiders.
Kingdom of the Spiders!
Kingdom of the Spiders. So I did a movie called Kingdom of the Spiders. I had no idea when they invited me to come here to Chicago or Rosemont, and it's a monster show as against science fiction show. So I thought, what? I don't remember doing a monster. Now that I remember, having a moment to think back, I've done like 3 or 4. So in terms of stories I could tell you, the tarantula thing comes up because it was dangerous, because they don't kill you, tarantulas, but they hurt when they bite. I mean, and then if you get more than one bite, it's like, bees stinging you. So there were scenes in which I had to deal with tarantulas, many scenes with these spiders. Now, I presume you all know what a tarantula is. It's about that big. It's a spider. And we're programmed as human beings to be afraid of spiders. Spiders bite you. My wife had 2 holes in the back of her leg. We couldn't figure out what it was because her leg was swelling up. It was a spider bite, little teeny spider bite. And I'm looking at tarantulas that big. Not only am I looking at them, they want them on my body. So there was, I suppose nowadays you could artificially and electronically put it on them. But not then. They were real tarantulas. And the prop and gathered, and I was wearing nylon, artificial material. By that I mean the clothing was like fitted me and all, but it was very thin. So when they put a tarantula on me, I could feel its claws. Those claws are designed to climb on glass, let alone wood. So they penetrated the material and stuck me. And then they put, they got one on, the nurses get another one on, and then it coated me with tarantulas. And then, because I'm me, I thought, wouldn't it be fantastic to put a tarantula right here? So I suggested putting tarantula on my cheek, because I had to fall into camera. So how much glue do you need to stick a tarantula to you? Nobody had an answer. So it was experimental. Little tiny daub of glue, and it fell off. Big patch of glue, it wouldn't go. I thought it would be great for it to fall off. I had to fall into camera, and as I fell, I thought it would be great if the tarantula, because if it didn't move, you'd think it was rubber. But if I fell and it crawled off, it would be spectacular. I put that upon myself. So the experiment began. How much glue does it take to stick a tarantula to your skin? We didn't have any previous. We couldn't look it up, okay? I had to write the book on it. So it took a half a dozen times, tarantulas all over me, and we stuck a tarantula on my cheek, and I fell into, the camera's like down there, and I fell into camera, and I tried to get it. It either fell off before I fell into camera, or it wouldn't come off. We did it a half a dozen times, more glue, less glue, and finally I fell into camera and I went like that, twitched enough so the thing came off and walked off. At which point the camera, because the cameraman hadn't practiced it, cameraman followed the tarantula and there was another camera. So the thing didn't work. I had to do it again. That was, I can't tell you the number of years ago that picture was in the 70s. And I had, as I'm telling you the story, my body is remembering the agony, because not only that, itching powder was made from the hair of a tarantula. So they had tarantulas in a bag, and I was supposed to pass under something or other, and tarantulas are supposed to fall on it. So that as I passed by, they're filming, they emptied the bag of tarantulas on my head. Well, the tarantulas had been in the bag for a while, and so some of the hair fell off. So now this cloud of tarantula hair lands on me, and I'm beginning to... It was grotesque. The movie was quite popular, but I never wanted to see it. I hated doing that film so much. Kingdom of the Spiders. I developed not a hatred, because it's a living thing, but a apprehension. I fear. I'm reluctant to say the word fear in terms of I fear those big spiders after that. PTSD on spiders. That's making horror films. I did another horror film called, with Ernest Borgnine, called Devil's Reign. So I'm glad, desultory applause for Devil's Reign. So my memory of Devil, and I'm just culling these up now. I hadn't sort of planned on this, but Devil's Reign. So my most vivid memory of Devil's Reign, all those years ago, we shot the movie in Mexico, and I don't know why. Probably expense. And we were in the farthest reaches of Mexico, and I don't know why. Probably expense. And they built a set, and I have a recollection of a publicity photograph. I'm lying on the table, and they used it. I'm lying on the table with just a little thing across my groin. That's called a cackle. A beautiful blonde just cackled at me. So I'm lying there on my back with this thing across my groin. The photographer is over here. And they brought in a model, a beautiful lady. It was you, wasn't it? And she stood beside me. And I think they used that photograph on the poster. But while the guy is clicking away, the beautiful lady reaches for my groin underneath the thing. What are you doing? I mean, I wouldn't have minded if we were alone, but there were 17 people and 3 people from the nearby village. But I realized what they were doing. They were getting a photograph that they would print somewhere. I mean, it all flashed through my head. They were looking to shoot a photograph of a beautiful girl grabbing me by my... You're cackling again. So I bounced up in outraged and said to the photographer, give me the film. And he, no, I'm not gonna, give me the film or I'll beat you to a pulp. And I'm standing there naked, you see, which lacks a little import, you know what I mean? I mean, if you're clothed and there's somebody naked demanding something from you, you are already at an advantage. And so the person naked is at a disadvantage, and I'm at a disadvantage, imposing my will on getting that piece of film. But then I was in good shape then, so I flexed a muscle at him. And I got the film back. I don't know what they were planning to do, but it was outrageous. And then they used the photograph on the whatever you call it.
Poster.
The poster. Thank you. Keep your answers
She's
there.
the cackler.
Yeah. Who's cackling? Which of the two of you is cackling?
She's the cackler.
She's the cackler. Okay. That is what I did another one. I did a film called Incubus. Okay, so there's a couple of yous there, but obviously none of you have seen it, or most of you. I can cackle too. In fact, I'm having a cackling competition right now. Okay, we hear that one. Let me hear some cackling. Come on, some more. Cackles, please. Okay, thank you. Would you cackle? The best cackler here. She's got the cackle prize. So, there was a writer and producer named Leslie Stevens. Do any of you know that name? From all the old television. He wrote a lot of television. Leslie Stevens did a long time ago. Mostly horror. Mostly imaginative things from outer space. And so he contacts me and says, I want to do a movie on like basic good and evil, like demons coming out of the ground. And I'd like you to, I said, that sounds great. You got a script? He said, yes, I've got a script, and I'll give it to you. And so I read it. It was like something very primitive with demons and gods and hero being torn, I think, if I remember correctly, literally and figuratively on the sides of good and evil. I said, wow, it's pretty dynamic and basic. I'd be happy to join you. And he says, yes, and we're going to film it in the international language, which was called Esperanto. So that's the way I reacted. I started to laugh. And I said, why? He said, because what was the great playwright that invented Esperanto? All right, so George Bernard Shaw. Have any of you heard of George Bernard Shaw? Around the turn of the 20th century, the early 1900s, he was very popular. He wrote a lot of popular plays, elegant plays. And he and a group of people decided what society needed was an international language. Like, we needed an interpreter between English and French or Spanish or German. But if everybody spoke a language that was vaguely familiar to all those languages, we might be able to dispose of translators and communicate among each other. So they sat around and invented a language that had Greek, Latin, English, German words in it so that it would be vaguely recognizable to the world, to the United Nations especially. Well, he said, Leslie Stevens said, 17 million people now speak Esperanto. And if we make a movie in Esperanto, which nobody's ever thought of, 17 million people will come and see the movie. It'll be a box office hit. I said, my God, I've never heard of it. That's incredible, man. So we started to film. And we had on one page English, and on the other page, it was translated into Esperanto. So it sounded something like Espaca da Udi Batalio. You understand that? Or I might have said, Senindi Ben Koraninayo. Do you understand the Esperanto? No, because you don't speak Esperanto. So we made the movie in Esperanto, and they released it. And people who spoke Esperanto did come and see it. There were 3 in Chicago, 7 in New York City. It failed. But it was fascinating because nobody had ever heard of a movie in Esperanto. Nobody could really understand it. There were subtitles, and it was entered in the Venice Film Festival. Okay, so there's Esperanto, which I spoke phonetically. I had no idea. Just what I said, "Putna kapasutu," I had no idea what it meant. I could look on the English side, realize what it was I was saying, but I had no idea what I was doing phonetically. I realized that I must be mispronouncing so many of those words, but people watching the film would think Shatner must know what he's doing. And I've been pronouncing that word the other, tutunana. I was saying gugu, so it must be tutunana because Shatner's saying it. So I changed the pronunciation of Esperanto. So I went to see the film. It was going to the Venice Film Festival, so there were Italian subtitles, which I couldn't comprehend. And I'm speaking Esperanto. So I'm watching the movie, this is months later, and I've done many things since then, so I don't quite remember what the film was about. So I'm looking at a film that I'm and I have no idea what it's about. That was my Esperanto Incubus experience. Did anybody of you see Incubus? Did it? One or 2 people? I don't know. Yeah, maybe you should go rent it or something. And I don't know where Leslie Stevens is now. I don't know whether he's alive or dead. But either way, he'd be very happy if Incubus was rented somewhere and it brought his estate some income. That's wild. Okay, so that's me and my horror history. Is there anything set up for questions? Perfect. Is anybody? What if nobody gets up? Okay. Well,
how are you?
So well. So I'm in a show that's got is a new show, and oh, good. Are you leaving, or are you going to ask questions? We're at a show, first-time show, so there's very few people here. And this show will grow over the years and become huge like all of the Comic-Con shows are, although this is a monster show. So in the years to come, when you come back, there'll be tens of thousands of people. But right now, we have the unique experience of having this intimate audience, so let's be intimate about it. What's your question, sir? What's your name?
My name is Rob Hibbs. It's a pleasure to meet you.
A pleasure, Rob.
So, first of all, I just want to say, obviously my favorite captain of all the captains.
Well,
And
obviously.
the captain. And Wrath of Khan is my go-to depression movie.
So wait a minute. Aren't we at a monster show?
Yes.
Are you here because of Star Trek or Monsters?
Both.
Both?
Both, yes.
So does that mean that Star Trek was monsters?
It had monsters in it. The aliens, they weren't.
Well, wait a minute. What's your definition of a monster?
That's good. That's a really good question.
Well, thank you. My God, look at that.
I mean, I guess it would have to have a monstrous...
No. What's the definition of a monster? I mean, we call mass murderers monsters, right?
Right.
I mean, they're monsters. We mean that they kill, they rape, they pillage. They're monsters.
Yes.
But what is a real monster? Well, wait a minute. You're here at a monster show. You've come to see monsters.
Right.
But you don't have a definition of what you've come here to see?
I mean, a monster could be
Yes.
anything. Yes, a
Right.
human,
Name a thing.
The Thing itself from the
What?
like from the movie The Thing. I mean,
No. What's your definition of a monster?
I don't have one.
You don't have a definition of it. I'm coming back to you. Wait a minute. Cackle. Get the cackler.
She's over there.
Oh, when did she move?
She moved to the question.
She's going to get a question. Cackler. Tell me your name again.
Rob.
Rob, we'll come back to you in a minute. Cackler, come here. Get right into the microphone. Right into the Cackler. All right, first of all, before you introduce yourself, cackle. Cackle. Okay, so you're building your part. Okay, so I thought that was funny and nobody else did except you. Cackler. That's a perfect. Is that a perfect monster sound? That cackle. Why? What? No. Okay, wrong. Get to the mic.
Rob. R-O-B.
Oh, wrong.
Yeah.
You should change it to wrong. It's got a nice sound.
I'll consider that.
Okay, Rob. Is that a good monster sound?
I'm not a monster.
No. The cackler just laughed.
Yes.
Is that monstrous? Does that sound like coming from a monster?
She isn't monstrous, but the laugh.
No. We're analyzing the laugh.
The laugh was very monstrous-like. Yes.
Okay, monstrous.
Villainous.
Okay, so now we're beginning to define
Right.
the monster.
Yes.
It has to have a cackle like that, right?
Of course.
Why?
To be different from you, I don't know. I need a dictionary. Does anybody have a dictionary?
A dictionary's not going to say. What?
Will be a movie, The Cackler.
Yeah.
Okay, but what's your name? Cackle. What?
Joy.
Joy. I love that. That's my sister's name. So Joy. Do you laugh like that? Cackle like that? That's your.
It's on a constant, yeah. My husband loves it.
When you're making love, do you cackle?
You know it.
Okay, but why do we think a monster laughs like that? Rob, if you have an opinion.
I agree. It's spooky. It's abnormal.
It's spooky. Well, wait a minute. You got to hit an interesting word.
Demented.
So wait, you cackle when making love, and it's dementia. Wow. That's an eye-opener, Joy. But maybe you're establishing a new relationship with your husband. No, you can't silently laugh, Joy. You have to cackle.
I'm shy, even though I'm not.
Yeah, I didn't know you were shy, Joy. Rob, demented. It's a demented laugh, right?
Yes.
So a monster, one aspect of a monster is dementia, right?
Apparently so, yes.
No. That's an equivocation.
Yes.
Take a position.
I take the position that it is, yes, monsters are
Okay,
demented.
perfect.
Yes.
Dementia is one aspect of monster.
Right.
Okay. Thank you, Rob.
I did have a question, though.
Oh, well,
I'm glad we got to the bottom
that's
of the monster.
somewhat demented, Rob, right there. What's your question?
I am genuinely curious what your experience was like out in outer space, in space itself.
Demented. All right, back to reality. Outer space. So, there are people who, I've forgotten the name, but they examine language. The terms are escaping me. Who is somebody who looks back in history? Anthropologist. Perfect. Okay. There is a study of anthropology looking back at human history. So we do digs, we dig in the ground and we get anthropological evidence of where humans lived and prior to humans being on Earth, anthropology. There are language anthropologists. So one example of that I've learned is about 10,000 years ago, the word horse came into language. They suddenly discovered they were referring to whatever language it was, probably the language that was spoken on the steppes of Russia. The Mongols spoke a language that was brought down into Europe. But the word horse came into the language, and they thusly surmised that horses became part of the domestication that humans were doing with wolves and cattle and horses. So they surmise from that anthropological evidence that horses came in about 10,000 years ago. There's no word in our language, in English, for weightlessness, because that's only happened in the last, 20 years. There's no word that's been invented for weightlessness because it is not within our experience. It's not like getting wet. Oh, it's wet and it's cold and there's dry and it's liquid and all the words that apply to getting wet. It's because getting wet is a common experience. Nobody but 600 people or so have felt weightlessness. So it's impossible to describe. And in fact, when they were teaching the astronauts weightlessness and they'd go into a swimming pool and be underwater, that still isn't what you feel. You rise. Suddenly, there were 3 days devoted to getting you ready to go into the space capsule. Those 3 days were spent learning how to take that 5-point harness and wrap it around you while you had your feet hooked into a thing here to keep you into the seat while you wrapped yourself in a 5-point harness. So you could get into the arm ones, and the waist ones were pretty easy, but the crotch one. So it goes into a circle like this. Now you got to reach into your crotch and try and find, Joy, if you'll excuse the expression, try and reach the hole. It was a novice experience. I never did find the hole. And you can hear me cackling, trying to do that while weightless. This experience is indescribable. But I had seen film. The pre-story goes, I go up to Seattle with a producer friend of mine with the concept of suggesting to Jeff Bezos and company that I be on the first Blue Origin shoot. And that's a great idea, great. Then COVID hit. We never heard back from anybody for a year. And then I read that Bezos himself, his brother, a lady astronaut who never did go up, so she was going to go up, and some youth, some adolescent, never found out who. And they have cameras all over the booth, the ship, the interior of the ship, cameras on everybody. So I saw film of Jeff Bezos floating like on his stomach, and his rear end is facing you. His head is this way. He's floating with his legs apart like that, and the kid is taking candies and throwing them at his ass. And I thought, if I ever go up in a spaceship, the last thing I'm going to do is throw candies at somebody's asshole. So, when I went up finally and released myself from this 5-point harness and floated, and everybody else was cheering and going, I got to the window and I looked out the window. I was most interested in looking into space and looking down at the earth. And when I looked into space, I saw blackness. Now, having played the role of Captain Kirk all those many years ago, not only did I have a fascination with space then, and how space worked, and how the stars multiplied and exploded and reformed. Not only did I have a fascination then, but playing this character who goes out into space even heightened my interest in how the stars work and what we know about the universe. So I was filled with the glee of looking into space. Well, my view of space from that spaceship was total blackness. What I saw in that spaceship was death. I saw death in space. That's where you go. That's monstrous out there. When I look back at the little blue dot that was our planet, I've been an ecologist for 60 years. Rachel Carson's book, The Silent Spring, changed my opinion of global warming and the danger that even then our planet was in. But 60 years later, the dangers that we all know about, which are very valid, very true. I looked back and saw the vulnerability of planet Earth. I'm a pilot. I know that above 12,500 feet, we need additional oxygen. 2 miles of air, and that's as much as we can live in. We have the core of the planet, we have the mantle, and then we have 3 or 4 layers covering the heat inside the planet. And then there's a handful of dirt, 6 inches thick in most places, where we grow things in order to live. How vulnerable that 6 inches of earth is. Then we have the oceans and the water from the clouds that form the cycle of water. And how vulnerable the seas are. I've forgotten the percentage of salinity, but that salinity has been there for millions of years. It's maintained in some way, and I'm not sure how, which is part of the legend of Gaia. The Greeks named the earth Gaia. It was an entity. It was a living entity. Earth meets many of the requirements of the definition of life. The currents of the ocean, the currents of the air are like flowing blood, veins and arteries. It maintains the salinity. And I don't know how, because the clouds condense above the ocean, come over to land, release the water as it cools, and it rains, and the rains wash off the earth into the ocean. So there's this cycle. So it's all going into the ocean. How does the ocean maintain its salinity over these millions of years? I've never heard a legitimate explanation. I got you. Is there a microphone? Go to the microphone and tell me how the earth maintains its salinity. What's your name?
Jeff.
Closer to the microphone, Jeff.
Jeff.
How does it maintain its salinity?
I read about it recently, and it has to do with
Right into the mic.
subduction. So it's tectonic.
No, subduction is tectonic plates.
It is. It's related to that.
No. Thank you, Jeff. You're very nice. Please sit down. Tectonic plates is another whole thing. All right. Recent discovery in the last 100 years, we suddenly discovered, oh, mountains, tectonic plates. Why we didn't know that before, I don't know. Okay. So somewhere there may be, and I've never heard it, an explanation of the maintaining of salinity. For example, the Mediterranean Ocean has a plug, Gibraltar, and every so often, every millions of years, that entry from the Atlantic Ocean plugs up, the Mediterranean doesn't get renewed, and dries out. And there are salt beds underneath the Mediterranean Ocean, which when the water finally evaporated after millions of years, all this former sea, the salt was there. Then some movement of the earth would cause Gibraltar to move, and the Atlantic Ocean would flood in. One of the explanations of the great flood, of the biblical flood, is that suddenly, whoa, like a bathtub being filled, the Mediterranean would fill, and that would be a cycle that would go on as the earth changed, as the dynamics of the earth changed. So the earth is changing all the time. The earth's shifting underneath us. The earth is shifting there. Recently, the magnetic north is changing everything. The earth is dynamic. And in those dynamics, the earth, people, things on the surface of the earth, including us, change. Let me just lead you on to the next thing. I went to the Antarctic recently, and I was part with Neil deGrasse Tyson of kind of the entertainment. Talk to them like I'm talking to you. Then Neil and I got together on stage, and we were funny, and he's so informed and so bright, and I'm not. So it was a good contrast, and we got a lot of laughs. So I come home from that adventure to the South Pole, and I'm fascinated by the explorers who went to the South Pole and mostly failed, except for the Norwegian Amundsen, who succeeded. And the question in my mind was, I got it. The question in my mind was, why? What in heaven's name is mankind doing? Exploring. We're happy, we're safe. Got a tree, we got corn to eat. What are we doing? Why did the guy climb off the tree and get on the ground? We were happy in the tree. And then we were happy in Africa. Why did we move out? Are we going to Mars? You're not going to live. When they unfurled the Webb telescope, and the mirrors came out, the mirrors that catch the sun to power. Almost immediately, a meteorite hit one of the mirrors. That's going to happen on the way to Mars and the way back. There's death lurking there, and we're on our way. Why? Why? What is this compelling need that's built into us? Curiosity. What's out there? What's happening? To so many people's death. Magellan, one of the great stories of exploration, turned into this demented guy preaching religion. He's there among natives who have got their own thing. You got to listen to me. They killed him. Why do we do that? Why do humans explore? So I wrote about it. And then I thought, hey, this could be something meaningful. I contact Neil deGrasse Tyson. Great idea. The producer of that script, of that trip. I get him. Let's do Neil and Bill on stage. So we're going to Seattle in June. We'll be in rocking chairs, and Neil and I will be in rocking chairs, and the title is Rockin' with Bill and Neil. And doing what I'm doing now. And next week, I'm going to Nashville and cut another record with Brad Paisley. Thank you very much, everybody. It's a pleasure to be with you. Thank you.